With about 3 days until the presidential election, tens of thousands of women across the country, including in Rockford, come together to rally for women's rights. This is part of the nationwide Women's March. WIFR's Alyssa Kelly talks with rally members and the vice chairman for Winnebago County, the Republican Party, on the importance of voting in this year's election.
People throughout Winnebago County and the nation will vote on issues like inflation and border policies. For hundreds of people in Rockford, an issue they will be voting on the upcoming election is women's rights.
We won't go back!
That is the message hundreds of community members spread at a rally in Rockford. Women's March Rockford and Winnebago County Citizens for Choice urged stateliners to vote on policy, not the person.
We want to empower people to lift up their voices and in their votes to make sure that our candidates are moving us in the right direction.
The event coincided with Get Out the Vote efforts across the nation.
Certainly the right to choose, a woman's right to choose her reproductive health and freedom are on the ballot based on what candidate you're voting for, and that is significant and important to us.
They say candidates who reflect their beliefs are important. Jan Kloss from the Winnebago County Republicans agrees, but believes fear-mongering is an issue this election.
I believe the two candidates, their policies are worlds apart. People just right now, we're a very divided country because people have very different worldviews.
Kloss believes everyone wants the same thing, but should ask the question, who will get us there?
It should be a state's decision. If the women don't like the laws in their state, they can try to get those laws changed, and that's the way it should happen.
The Women's March may be over in Rockford, though dozens more will be happening across the country on Sunday, including one in Appleton, Wisconsin.
According to History.com, the idea for a Women's March started after the 2016 election when thousands of people crowded the Capitol on Trump's first day in office.